Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we are going to discuss the 11th part of how to reaccess your chess, and we are going to discuss our psychological meanderings part, and we are going to discuss 9 critical diagrams which is simply going to help you to take your chess level skill to another level. Like, there are always some cases that it doesn't matter if you are an unrated or a 1700 rated player. Whenever you are facing a much higher rated player than you in the game, if he makes a bad move and you know what is the right move, sometimes you don't even play that move. The reason is quite simple. You think that he must have a plan behind that particular move. So you do not go for the best move you would usually go in case if you are facing a lower rated opponent. So we are all going to break down that mental breakdown, and we are going to discuss our 9 critical diagrams. So now quickly check it out. So now coming on to the first diagram we have on our board, we have this particular position and it's black to play, and black plays the move going to c8. The idea of black is pretty critical. Black is aiming to sacrifice the bishop on h3. And now, there are many players who think of the sacrifice is coming, so now let's prevent it by playing the move g4. And the idea of g4 here is you're basically preventing any sacrifices. But guys, after playing h5, gh5, bishop into h3, you simply get a worsened position, and now black is even threatening mate in 2. So basically, whenever you are facing something like this, you must calculate, and if you don't find anything serious, you can play a move like a4. The idea is pretty simple. White is preparing to play on the queen side, and basically if black sacrifices still, it's not working, because after knight h2, nothing is happening. The queen comes on f3 and the sacrifice is all waste, and you are simply a piece up and you are eventually going to win the game. So there is a philosophy, guys, that you must remember. Do you want to be the puppet or the puppet master? There is a rule that every threat should initially be looked at with a derisive, or you can say what rubbish attitude. Whenever your opponent plays a move like queen to c8, you can just say, what rubbish, what's happening? There is nothing happening. I can simply play the move knight h2 followed by queen f3 and nothing's happening. I'm simply winning the game. So this is a very critical fundamental part on the psychological purposes. So this was the first diagram that you must always take care of. And now let's move on to the second diagram. So now coming on to the second diagram, there is a game knight f3, d5, d4, knight c6, g3, bg2, bishop f5. And we land in this particular position, and black is already preparing to play the move knight to b4, followed by capturing on c2. So a normal move would be a castle and fine position. But in case to stop knight b4, many players even play c3 or even a3, trying to stop first knight b4, and now they are going to prepare for castle. It's not bad, but playing short castle is the best. You must think of every move as gold. Yeah, so basically every move is like gold. Moves are valuable commodity and you don't want to waste them. So basically after short castle, even if black plays knight b4, you can simply challenge it by playing the move c3. And after knight c2, knight h4, if bishop goes to g6, I can be simply a piece up. So basically, black have to capture on a1, and after knight f4, you will realize how the knight on a1 is simply trapped. The knight doesn't have a single move to move, and now eventually the knight is going to be dead, and we are going to have 2 minor pieces against the rook, which is a very healthy combination. So this is the basic fundamentals that you must remember. Stopping a fake threat is akin to stopping your opponent from losing the game. It is a very important quote said by Jeremy Silman, I guess. Stopping a fake threat is akin to stopping your opponent from losing the game. You must do not follow your opponent's fake threat. You must allow them actually. So this was the second diagram. So now let's move on to the third diagram. So now coming on to the third diagram, we have this particular position on the board, and it was a game that it's white to play, and white basically resigned in this position. Basically, white got flagged down. The reason is quite simple, because white thought that black might be winning. The reason is quite simple, because black was a high-rated player, and after reaching this position, black's expression simply got changed. Whenever you are winning the game, how your expression simply get changed. So this was the same expression that black was having, and it's white to play. And white got flagged down, but White was like, fine, I was still losing the game. But after the game was over, he discussed with the Jeremy Selman and he realized it was a drawish game. He can simply play the move bishop d8, and if king e6, like you can't go takes and play here because the pawn is hanging. So you basically, after king e6, you can now simply move the king, and you can just move the bishop back and forth, and it's a draw. There is nothing black can do, and eventually it would be a draw. There is nothing happening, and eventually it would be a draw even if you're facing Magnus Carlsen in this particular position. So you can see how the psychological thing works. It doesn't, you don't need to play the opponent, you just need to play the position. That is the main thing you need to work with. So this was the third diagram, so now let's move on to the fourth diagram. So now coming on to the fourth diagram, you have this particular position on the board, and currently white is hitting the black rook, and black is, if you count the material, black is a pawn up. So what black did in this particular position here is, black played the move rook to c7. And first of all, black is a high rated, black is a 1900 and white is an unrated. So after playing rook c7, it looks like black is simply giving up the rook. But guys, after capturing the rook, you will realize that after bishop to d6 check, it would be a check and white is also losing a rook. And now then you will calculate the pawns. White is having 2 pawns where black is having 3 pawns. So in the end game, black is eventually winning. So what white did was, white simply moved the rook to d5, which was simply a blunder. Like, if he captures, there is no bishop d6. The reason is that the bishop is simply pinned. So the bishop cannot move from the e7 square, and eventually it would be a winning game for white. But white simply fallen for it. The reason is quite simple. The rating criteria. Rook d5, and eventually after a couple of moves, white simply lost the rook and he resigned the game, and black simply won a losing game. So you can see how this psychological concept matters the most in chess. So you must be away from it. You must think over the board. You must not think the way your opponent is thinking. You must think your own way. You must say what rubbish my opponent is playing, and you must find the most precise way to beat your opponent. So this was the fourth diagram. So now let's move on to the fifth diagram. So now coming on to the fifth diagram, you have this particular position on the board. And currently black is giving white a check. So what white did here was, white played the move queen f2. And after queen f2, what white thought here is, even what black thought that if I take, it would be a fine position now for white. Because though black is a pawn up, but now it's like the rook can no longer penetrate into white's camp. So like after playing queen f2, black is wondering himself that how can I simply miss a simple defense like queen f2 and he pull his queen back. But like after the game, he didn't even realize that his opponent simply blundered a rook. The reason is quite simple, because white was simply high rated compared to the black. And after queen f2, he played the move queen g6, king d2, preventing the pawn. And eventually, after a couple of moves, black was still able to win the game, which is no harm. Okay, so in the end, black was able to win the game. So, but still, he wasn't able to find the move queen into rook. So guys, there is a rule that always challenge everything until you have to the best of your ability, proven or disproven the other person's view. It doesn't matter what your opponent is thinking. You must think your own self. If you are thinking that this thing is right, if you're thinking that this thing is wrong, you must do it on the board to check it out. So yeah, this was the fifth diagram. So now let's move on to the sixth diagram. So now coming on to the sixth diagram, we have this particular position on the board. It was white to play, and white actually resigned in this particular position. If you count the material, black is a pawn up, so it should be at least better for black. So it's white to play, and what white did was simply resigned. But miraculously, it's winning it's a drawish position. White was an unrated player and black was a 1900. White played the move h3. Like white should have played the move h3. And after h3, if black goes on rook b3, like this is what white thought. White thought that rook is coming in and we can simply capture the pawn and it is a forced mate. White can't really stop it, even if white knows that it is a mate. White can't really stop it. You can try if you want. But after h3, rook g3, rook b3, it's a draw because of rook c8 check, king g7, giving the rook and giving another rook. There is no way black can't take it, and after taking, it's a stalemate. It's a miracle save by white, and it's eventually a draw. You can see how the possession is the draw. So you must not resign until the game is over. You must not lose your hope. You must say to your opponent, what rubbish, and play the best move. So this was the 6th diagram. So now let's move on to the 7th diagram. So now coming on to the 7th diagram, we have on a board, it's a Karo Khan, and eventually we have this position over here. After pawn takes, after bishop into d5, it's the very position, and black is wondering how to capture the bishop. Should black capture the bishop with the queen or with the pawn? Which is the right move? Definitely white is a higher opponent or more powerful opponent than black. So black is thinking that the most common move, most natural move, queen to d5 seems to be wrong after knight f6 at gf6, and the position looks not good. Like the king is simply exposed. So what black did was, black at the place of capturing with the queen, after being to d5, he went for capturing with the pawn, and after pawn takes, queen f3, suddenly black is having a completely losing position. Like if you try to play h5, we have this position, and white simply is a pawn up and is healthy. And the basic point here is, after queen f3, if you try to move the knight anyway, like let's take it to g6, bishop into h6 threats are always there in the end. After takes, knight takes, and it's like white is already better. So this is what white simply fell for. Black simply fell for it. Black must have played the move queen into d5, and after knight takes, pawn takes, he must have asked himself, what is the worst that white can do? White can play the move queen h5, the most terrorizing move coming into the black camp. But after king h7, black's preparing to play the move rook g8 and getting into the open g file, and somehow looking good for black. It's looking good for black, and yeah, it's good. So basically, don't give up on something unless you have completely proven that it's bad. You must realize this thing, because it is the most crucial thing that every chess player misses. So this was the 7th diagram. So now let's move on to the diagram number 9. So now finally coming on to our final diagram of the day, which is the 9th diagram. We have this particular position on the board, and currently it's black to play and black's knight is hanging. So the most common move is to play the move knight to b6, put our knight to d5, which is the most ideal square for the knight. But black played the move knight bishop to a5. After bishop a5, what black is thinking here is, if white captures the knight after bishop takes, it's an equal position. But black simply missed the move b4. And now both the pieces are attacked, so black have to capture, and after knight c2, you will realize how the both pieces are hanging, and eventually this is a winning game for white. And eventually white in the end was able to win the game. So basically, in general, I can't appears to due to lack of proper concentration, bad mental health, or allowing emotion to override logic. These are the key factors that make you feel like I can't do this thing. Once you must overcome these things, you are simply going to, your level of chess skills is simply going to be in simply another level. So these were the critical line diagrams that you must remember, and I hope that these all diagrams definitely must have helped you to improve your game. So this was all for today. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So if these videos helped you to improve your game, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and our target is to reach 7,000 subscribers at the end of the month. So I hope that you guys will support us, and you will make sure to subscribe to our channel, because I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.